Adventures in Supply Chain podcast is pleased to announce the Coronavirus and Supply Chain video series to help our communities with the insights of outstanding leaders in supply chain and in other critical functions. These challenging times are also for transformations and opportunities. We will get through this together, and we will make it happen. Who doesn't know Sarah Barnes-Humphrey? Sarah is one of the top 100 most influential women in Canadian supply chain, top 100 women leaders in supply chain, host of the top-ranked podcast Let's Talk Supply Chain, and a industry-leading content creator. To know Sarah is to know that supply chain is in her blood. Growing up in a household of entrepreneurs, building a shipping company really set her path in motion. For years, logistics was spoken about at the dinner table. Then she was fortunate enough to spend 20 years of her career helping to build that company, whether she was in operations, sales, or running the sales and marketing teams. Sarah's mission is to create value and also to disrupt international shipping. As CEO for ShipZ Incorporated, Sarah is bridging the gaps between shipping providers and mid-market importers and exporters in a trusted marketplace so everyone wins. And now with you, your host Marcia, and our amazing guest, Sarah Barnes-Humphrey, to talk about the hot topics in supply chain.
Welcome, Sarah. A pleasure to have you on the show. To me, like as I was saying before, you are like a top star in supply chain. So to me, it's an honor that you have accepted the invitation to be a guest.
Well, it's an honor for me to be here. Thank you so much for asking me, and I'm super excited just to be here and talk about, whatever we're going to be talking about today. I'm guessing we're going to be talking about supply chain.
Yes, as your microphone says, let's talk supply chain. So the question that I have, that I'm sure you have received this question before, is what are the challenges in supply chain? If you have to pick the top 2 or 3 challenges, what are the ones that you would select?
Yeah, so I think business in general, not just supply chain professionals, I think leaders in general are tasked with a lot of things right now. One of them that we can talk about across business would be, the work from home or the flexible, going into work, working from home type schedule and what everybody's going to do. Are we going to work from home for the foreseeable future? Are we going to have a hybrid model where some people go in some days and some people go in another day? So that one, I would say for leaders across the board, whether you're in supply chain or not, is definitely something that they're talking about. And then a couple of weeks ago, we do a question of the week every single Wednesday morning. And we asked, what's the top priority of supply chain professionals right now? And I would say about 85% of people actually came back and said communication. And I think what we're seeing, with the work from home and with everything that's happening in COVID and the pandemic, I think, people are putting a lot, or we just need to put a lot more on communication, right? We're not seeing each other every day in the office. We're not able to communicate that way. Some people have video on, some people don't have video on. And so communication has really been a top priority in figuring out what that means. And then I think the other one that everybody is really talking about is globalization, right? So, what does our supply chain strategy look like? Are we going to stay in China? Are we going to move from China? Are we going to manufacture for local markets? Are we going to manufacture for global markets? Are we, going to take advantage of free trade zones? Like, there is so much. I don't envy supply chain leaders that are in those types of positions that are looking at all of these things right now, because there is a lot to consider and there's a lot to do.
Yes, no, exactly right. And I understand about globalization, right? Because at this moment we have many suppliers in China, India, other countries. And so sometimes we need to consider like a short-term strategy and then long-term, because it's not so easy, right, to switch our supplier base. So I understand the challenges. And you are right on when you mention communication. because other leaders in supply chain have mentioned that it takes actually like more time, more involvement than before when we used to work at the office, or at least when we used to work more time at the office.
Yeah. Yeah. And I would like to think that, leaders are also empowering their teams to make decisions, and especially in enterprise companies, I think prior to COVID, there was long cycles to be able to make decisions on certain things. You had to involve certain people, and, the process was just taking a really, really long time. Well, what COVID has shown us is that we need to be able to pivot. We need to be agile. And the only way to do that is to empower those that you've put in those positions to make those decisions and be able to run with them, but also to make mistakes, because people are going to make mistakes, right? So really having the communication being a key, I thought was amazing. Like I was surprised, but at the same time, I was really happy to hear that.
Yes. And so you mentioned communication. What other actions successful companies are taking during this time?
Well, I think that they are obviously taking a look at a lot of different things. One of them being technology, right? I'm hearing about a lot of business leaders, supply chain leaders that previously had technology on the back burner. They're now bringing some of that technology to the forefront. They're now taking a look at what technology can enhance some of their processes. What can they implement right now that are going to help them be a little bit more strategic when they bring their teams back, or when they look at hiring the next wave of talent, so that they can be better prepared and, be more efficient. Because again, what we've learned from this is that we need to be agile and we need to be able to pivot. And so technology is really going to help us do that. I think also that's really become more almost like a lifeline is data, right? I think companies are putting a lot more into data. Where's our data? What's our bad data? What are we doing with our data? How can we utilize it better? Is there a software or a technology out there that can help us figure out our supplier base, or that can introduce us to a new supplier base? I think also they're thinking about sustainability and diversity when they're thinking about how they're going to change their processes and what that change strategy looks like. And I think, being able to turn to a software as well, like a Tealbook, that can help bring small, diverse suppliers into your supplier portfolio, I think is really huge right now, and something that people are taking a look at.
Yes, I am aware of that. They use artificial intelligence to do that.
They do, yeah.
Yes. So would you say that the pandemic accelerated the transformation with technology, or some are on hold? Because initially we thought, okay, we are going to put everything on hold, but that didn't happen.
Yeah, that's a mild way of putting it. I think the pandemic accelerated so many things for so many businesses and so many supply chain professionals. It's really, and we still really haven't seen all of the effects. I think it's going to take some time. I think people are still dealing with that change. We're still not out of the woods. They're talking about a second wave. There's a lot of uncertainty. There's a lot of things that we need to consider when we're making some of these decisions. And, data is really, really important right now. And I think it's really accelerated companies to really take a look internally and be like, okay, who are we? What are we? And what do we want to do? How do we want to bring a positivity out of this pandemic? How can we, right? What does that long-term mean for us? And what do we have to do internally to make us stronger?
Yes. And as you were saying, data is essential. Now, it's like not only the analysis of historical data, now we are going to those predictive models, right, to anticipate what is going to happen. So the next question is about that. It's like what do you anticipate is going to happen close to Black Friday and the holiday season in these unique times from the supply chain perspective? I imagine all about e-commerce, right?
Yeah. I mean, I don't have a crystal ball. I don't really know what's going to happen. I mean, I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I think Amazon pushed back their, I can't remember what their day is called, but they have like a Black Friday, and I think they pushed it back because of what's happening in the pandemic. So will we have a Black Friday? I don't know. Will it be more e-com than it will bricks and mortar? Probably. I think all of our habits as consumers are changing, right? And they've changed rapidly through the pandemic because we've had to change. A lot of people that traditionally were going into the grocery stores are now ordering their food for delivery or for pickup. Right. And I think that number has grown exponentially. And I think we're seeing a lot more bricks and mortar shut down, and a lot more emphasis being put on e-com. So will we have a Black Friday? I don't know. How will it look? I would probably say we'll have a higher percentage of e-com than in person. But it also depends on inventory too, right? So the decisions for inventory, obviously we saw in the spring when the pandemic first hit, retailers bought or they had already brought in their inventory, or it was already on the water. And when it hit and nobody was buying, or they had nowhere to put it, it stayed in containers. Yeah. So how have the buyers pivoted? What has that looked like? I think only time will tell. I think we'll find out in the fall around Black Friday to see what that actually looks like. Did they reduce how much product they were buying? I don't know. They probably did. How are their buying decisions being triggered? And it's most likely because of, the uncertainty. And so, I think it all depends. It really all depends on their cycles and what that's been looking like. However, they do plan quite ahead of time. So I don't know. There might be a lot of inventory out there that they want to put on discount anyways for a Black Friday, but do it through an e-commerce type scenario.
Yes, that is going. We will have to wait, right, to see. Like with the disinfecting wipes, the demand now is extremely high, but then with the inventory, it will be one moment that we will have more, right? So we might we might see the spring inventory that sat there on sale for Black Friday. I know. And Sarah, how do you see the changes or the impact of COVID-19 on the supply chain professionals, the content of the work? Because I do supply chain, so it's very different if I compare against other years. So I would like to have your thoughts and perspectives.
Yeah, I think everybody is working longer hours, right? I think they're working harder, right?
That's true. Now we have more time because we don't commute, but we put that into work.
Yeah, and if you're not used to working from home, where are those boundaries? Where are those lines? Right? I think as supply chain leaders, so professionals in general have had a lot of stress to deal with, right? Because they've gone from working in an office environment to working from home. Well, first of all, you got to figure out where in the home you're going to do that if you didn't have an office in the first place. And is it just you, or is it your spouse? right? And is your spouse having to work from home? So where does everybody do this? And then on top of that, you've got potentially children in the house that also have to do school, potentially virtually. And so, not just with work, but just with family life and that work-life balance that, some people think we had before, some people didn't think it existed, was really kind of thrown on its head, right? And I've heard all sorts of different things. I've heard couples that have changed their work days. So they've had a conversation with the company that they work for, and they said, listen, I can work Wednesday to Sunday. And then my husband, he works, I don't know, maybe he works Monday to Friday. And so she has Monday and Tuesday off, and he has Saturday and Sunday off. And that's how they're able to make the schedules work. Which is tough. Like that is tough. The other thing that they're contending with is also empathy, right? Everybody is having to have a heightened sense of empathy because everybody is going through this in various different ways and are able to handle it in various different ways. So I think, empathy has been a real big one that people have to, if you're not empathetic, you got to get your head around it. It's, I think also from a mental health standpoint, right? Everybody has had to figure out how they deal with it on their own, how their family is dealing with it, how their coworkers are dealing with it. And so there is just a lot. There's a lot to do. There's a lot to navigate. There's a lot to figure out. And there still is. I think people are still trying to figure that out. Some kids are going back to school. Some kids aren't going back to school. Some people are going back in the office. Some people aren't going back in the office. So what does that's a whole nother schedule altogether.
Yes. And everything was in a very short period of time. Because there wasn't like before, there's a training that helps you to go through this. No, it was from one day to another day. Very challenging.
Yeah, very challenging. And, as supply chain leaders, they also have to look out for their teams and their team's mental health. And so I have a lot of discussions with supply chain leaders where I'm asking them how they're doing because they're having to take care of so many other people on top of their own personal stuff, and they're not necessarily getting asked as much. And so it's just, how are you doing? Are you doing okay? Because you're taking on emotionally, people have been taking on a lot over the last couple of months. Yes.
And I can tell you that your show did a great job on that. The body check on Fridays. And to me, from my personal experience, helped me greatly during those times. So thank you for that.
Oh, I'm so glad. When this first started, I was like, how can we help? How can we make sure that we're reaching out to each other? And I just threw it out there one day and I was like, buddy check, let's just check on each other. And, some people come back and they say, and then it just inspires, right? It inspires everybody to check on their network. And that's really what it's all about. Just to say, hey, I'm thinking of you, whether it's a good day, whether it's a bad day, we're all in this together. So I'm just glad that it's made a difference. So thank you.
No, very helpful, very helpful. And what can we expect? What are we going to see from you? Because I know you have many initiatives, not only about your podcast, but also your business.
Yeah. So there's a lot going on right now. So I have just launched our supply chain tech platform called ShipZ or ShipZ. So ShipZ.com. And that comes from my experience of being in logistics for the last 20 years and bringing together providers and shippers in a trusted environment for international ocean freight and air freight. So any shippers out there that are looking to, hop on a platform like this and find more freight forwarders and be able to move their ocean freight and air freight easier, go to ShipZ.com and sign up. And the same for freight forwarders and providers. We're really creating a safe space. So super excited about that. So that has been launched, and I'm going to be working really hard to get everybody onto the platform, and we're also looking for investment as well. And then let's talk supply chain. I mean, we've got mini series that are coming out every single month, 2 mini series. We've got our Women in Supply Chain series that happens twice a month. We've got some really great companies coming out on the show as well on the regular podcast episode. And I'm going to be at all sorts of virtual conferences. I'm super excited because there's a lot of great things that are happening. There's a lot of great conferences that are coming out. So supply chain tech conferences, supply chain conferences in general, women in supply chain conferences. And so I'm just grateful that people want to hear from me and that they want me to be involved. So.
I'm sure you are going to do great with your business, and it's a pleasure to have Let's Talk Supply Chain. So thank you so much for all what you are doing for supply chain. And again,
thank you.
No, this is great. And again, it was an honor to have you. Thank you so much for taking time of your extremely busy schedule to talk to me on the show. Thank you so much, Sarah.
Absolutely. And thank you for what you're doing. I mean, you're inspiring conversations just as much as I am. And, people are looking for that right now. So thank you for what you're doing. And thanks for having me on the show.